So now we'll turn to our speaker today, which is Lucy Graham. Lucy, as you probably know, is the head of CAFNEC, the Cairns and Far North Environment Center. Lucy's a JCU graduate, so we're very proud to have her coming back and talking to us. Worked in sustainability, headed up the JCU Sustainability Club for a number of years, has been hugely involved in CAFNEC, and if you look at her bio, a lot of different kinds of issues, controversies around the region. And we're really pleased to have her today talking to us about which will soon appear magically, and telling us about some of the activities of CAFNEC, which we all know is a really fantastic organization and a real asset to this part of the world. Anyway, thank you very much, Lucy.
Thanks everyone for coming here in person, and also for our friends online. I always love speaking into the ether of JCU rooms. I want to start by acknowledging the traditional owners on the land here, the Jabagai and Yirukandji people, and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging, but also to pay respects to all of the traditional owners across Far North Queensland, which is a really, really big area, and there's a really great diversity of amazing First Nations people, and that does extend to the Torres Strait. So it includes our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders First Nations people, and just acknowledge the incredible work that they've done looking after country for more than 60,000 years, and acknowledge the amount of stuff we have to learn and respect we have to build, and the healing that still has to happen post colonization, arguable if we're there yet. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Lucy, and as Bill said, I have previously studied here at JCU, and worked here for a while, and since graduating in 2016 have worked in advocacy mainly, and while the knowledge I learned in my degree here was the foundation of what I know and the content of what I work in, it was being involved in the student clubs and the student life here pre-COVID that helped me become an activist, and that was a strong connection that CAFNEC also had here on campus when that happened. So it's really, really special to be back here talking about what CAFNEC does. So a lot of people don't know a lot about CAFNEC's role as a peak body. A lot of people know CAFNEC as a local conservation group in Cairns, but we're actually one of 9 regional conservation councils for Queensland, and we're a member of the Queensland Conservation Council. And I used the pointy thing. This, I think I have to step. Or do I point it here? I don't know. No, that's not it. I'm not very techie. Oh yeah, there we go. Okay, so this area here is Far North Queensland, and that goes from Cardwell all the way up to the Torres Strait, down the Western Cape, out to the border. This area is what CAFNEC represents. That is 380,000 square kilometres. It's bigger than Victoria. And so when people call us a little regional conservation group, I'm like, no, we have a huge amount of work to do. We have 2 of the most important World Heritage Areas in Australia, and both of them are on the 7 Wonders of the World list. So what we have here is really important. We are also a peak body for more than 30 different member groups. Not all of them are there because not everyone's done their paperwork yet, and it's a big list, but we have, when I talk about who CAFNEC is, we have 6 part-time staff members, but that is not who CAFNEC is. CAFNEC is all of our volunteers, our members, our member groups, anyone who cares about the environment and lives in that area of 380,000 kilometres who is engaging with us. So, it is a really big job, and, I think it's important to recognise that we might not have a lot of people in that 380,000 square kilometres, but CAFNEC's role is to look after the environment. And there is a lot of really unique and special things in our region that we are tasked with looking after. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about how they do that. But I guess I also want to touch on, this is TESS seminars. You usually get to hear from a lot of researchers about the incredible work that they do. And we are nothing without our science and our traditional knowledge. And so while I might not be presenting, there's some research in here on research. I want to really acknowledge the incredible work of all of the researchers that contribute to our knowledge of tropical environments. And certainly, the work of researchers here is fundamental in how we advocate. And if we don't have that science to say this is what's happening, we can't advocate. And it can be things, the work that India sitting in the room has been doing on the interactions of cassowaries and vehicle strikes, in Mission Beach, or the really amazing paper that was recently released about how fast our rainforests are losing their trees because of increased heat. That kind of stuff really is important. So I just want to acknowledge that important role that research plays. Boring slide, but important slide is like, we are a non-government organisation that is driven by our objectives. They're broad, and basically, I'm not going to read them out there because you can see them all, and this is recorded, and you can go back and read them in detail or look at our constitution online. But what I say to our team is that we are something to everyone most of the time. And that means that anybody should be able to call us in Far North Queensland about any environmental issue. And we're there to help people understand those issues, know how to take action on them, or join campaigns if we're already running something on that issue. But at the foundation of it, we're here to look after the environment, help people become stewards of it, and make sure that people are looked after in conjunction with looking after the environment. Our vision, and this is from our current strategic plan, is a safe climate and flourishing environment where community and nature coexist in harmony. Our vision is what the thing that we see when we think about our work. And it is our mission to bring the broad-based community and other organisations together to take action to promote that. So basically, it's like we want a world where there's balance, and we want to help people get there. So I'm going to go through a couple of the really important ways that we do that. So just 2 weekends ago, we had our annual Far North Queensland Environment Roundtable, which is a 2-day event up in Port Douglas. This is an event where we bring together, different regional conservation groups. We had people coming together from as far north as Marpoon and as far south as Mission Beach, and we had a lot of our individual members and supporters in that room. And that's where we really get together and we get to talk about what are the issues that our environment is facing right across the region, where is there alignment, where is there crossover, and how can we work together to advocate on that. Apart from helping the groups get together, connect, feel connected, sit in a room with other people who think it's okay to say the system is broken, we've got to fix it, which is not a place you can always sit in. Apart from that, we also, the community lets CAFNEC know, the staff bit of CAFNEC know what those key priorities are for environmental change in our region. And as the director of CAFNEC, I go down to Brisbane twice a year and have a roundtable with the State Environment Minister to present to them about what are the key conservation issues in our region, what does the department and our state government need to be doing to protect the environment. And that's really important because, as we know, there's not a lot of resources in the Environment Department, and they're not here on the ground as much as they should be. So it's really important, they find it really important to hear from us about what they need to be doing, and we find it important to tell them. And it's a very, I would say, productively cordial and tense conversation. And so we were really happy with this year's roundtable, which went across 2 days and had a really good mixture of our both Indigenous and non-Indigenous member groups from all across the region. I have to use the clicky now. I'm trying to change, oh, there we go. Okay. Oh, it went too far. How do I go back? Previous. Oh no, it's not in order. Okay, well, anyway, there's a slide missing there. I had another picture in between these two slides, which for some reason isn't showing up, which is about the climate action work that we've been doing. So obviously, climate is a really big issue. It's multifaceted. You could argue that anything to do with conservation is to do with climate change. But at the core of the worst climate impacts we're seeing is, I guess our community's understanding of climate change, how it affects people, what people think about it, how we talk to our decision makers about climate change, the agenda that we set as a community. So one of the really important things that, and really hard things to do, is to understand the attitudes of our community about climate change, what people are concerned about, and what they think the key solutions are. So for 2 years now, CAFNEC has been working with some very dedicated and awesome volunteers, door knocking in suburbs around our region, around the Cairns region, to ask people, what do they think about climate change? Is it an issue? Is it not an issue? If it is an issue, what should we be doing about it? What are the solutions and what are the key issues that you see? And you can see there the Australian Audiences for Climate Change Conversations was national research that created profiles for different attitudes towards climate change. And we've been using that research to underpin our door knocking and the way that we class people. And so you can see here, we've got one more. We've just finished door knocking in Yorkeys Knob as well now, that the large majority of our community believe that climate change is an issue and believe that something should be done about it. We still have a large part of our community that's not engaged or is unconcerned or actually really optimistic about our climate. But the important thing in here, and I haven't presented all the data in here because we don't have hours, is that what we're getting really important information on now are what are the key issues around climate change. Now, we don't prompt people, we just write down what they say and collect data on it. Surprisingly, it'll be interesting to see how that's changed in Yorkeys, because that's the first suburb we've door knocked in after the federal election. But the most common issue that people identified as a climate issue was government inaction. And that was really interesting because the way the question was framed is like, what's the biggest issue that you face for climate change? So we thought it would be impacts, but no, it was government inaction. Apart from that, heat waves, heat, coastal erosion, and fossil fuels were some of the highest responses. So it's really interesting also seeing the differences between suburbs. Our beach community is obviously very concerned about coastal hazards. Smithfield really concerned about heat, because I don't get that coastal breeze, I guess. So you start getting really suburb-specific data on what people are concerned about. Interestingly, the solutions that people were raising were both for community members ourselves as well as government. So people really wanted to have a lot more gardens, a lot more green spaces, sensitive design, sensitive urban design, and Lisa Law has been doing incredible work in this region on that. We've also been getting Climate Action Now signs out across our region, which people can put on their fences. And the slide had a little QR code that you could scan to get one. But that is not affiliated with any ask, but it is just demonstrating that regional communities do want more action on climate change, and being able to make that visible across our region. I've put a QR code on this one. One of our big pieces of work over the last year or so now has been talking about what a just transition looks like in regards to nature specifically. We have been working towards transition to renewable energy for a very long time because of the climate impacts associated with fossil fuel generated energy. However, the scale at which we need to transition to is huge, and it includes large-scale energy development. Without proper planning, what we're seeing is that there are major issues arising with renewable energy developments being put in areas of very high biodiversity. Unfortunately, most of the land we cleared in Queensland has been on the flat stuff, and so all the good stuff is left on the high stuff, and everything's moving uphill because everything's getting hotter. But where is the wind? It's on the top of the hills. So where do we put wind farms? In the most important climate refuge here at the top of hills where we haven't cleared before, and everything that is endangered is going to. At the moment, wind farms in Queensland are code assessable, which means they're not assessed under the Nature Conservation Act, and they do not require any community consultation, which is obviously an issue, particularly when some of these areas are clearing more land than we have rehabilitated in the last 10 years in our region. So that would all go in the bin, all that effort immediately. So we're really happy. The 10-year energy plan released a couple of weeks ago. We've been working very hard with planning, energy and environment to say that this needs to be solved. They have now announced a review of the energy development planning laws in Queensland as a result very specifically of CAFNEC's work on this issue. And if you scan that QR code with your phones right now, you can sign a petition to ensure that that review is public and includes public consultation, which is really important, because if governments just do what they think is right and don't hear from the community, usually we don't get the best results. As well as that, we've joined the Australian Energy Market Operators Community Advisory Committee, which is the AMO-CAC. It's the first time our national energy market operator has had a community advisory council. I don't know why they've had any social license issues in the past if they haven't talked to community at all. I can't imagine. But now they're starting to, and we're really proud to be representing on a national peak body, and that AMO is responsible for the integrated systems plan that gets put out, saying where our transition will be going, regulating our market for energy, all of that kind of stuff. We're also now working with the Energy Charter to do a Better Together project, where conservation groups and energy corporations are working together to create a new best leading practice guideline for a restorative energy industry. So an energy industry that actually results in net positive biodiversity. So at the moment, you can have an offset. You say, I'm going to clear here, but I'm going to protect this other bit of land in perpetuity, but overall we've lost nature. What this will mean is that whatever development happens, it has to increase biodiversity, not just be like no loss. It's like we have huge loss of biodiversity in Queensland, and we need to be in a biodiversity positive development landscape at this stage. So that's been really exciting work. We run a citizen science program. In 2015, there was a mass die-off of mangroves in the Gulf of Carpentaria, and that highlighted the fact that there was no long-term monitoring of mangrove ecosystems in our region. So CAFNEC started up a branch of Mangrove Watch, and we do shoreline assessments of mangrove, all of the estuaries in the wet tropics, to collect long-term data sets on the mangrove health. And we're really excited because as of this year, that is now included in government reporting for water quality in our region. So it's really, really amazing when citizen science data is used in that way. And a big thanks to Terrain, who worked with us to make that happen, and Earthwatch and Mangrove Watch, and Jock McKenzie, who's the scientist who has ensured that our methodologies are solid enough that that citizen science data can be used in this report card. And that really talks about how mangrove health is an indicator of how healthy that water is. And that's a really important part of things. I could talk about mangroves all day, so I'm going to keep going. Oh no, I'm going to talk about them a bit more. Because of our citizen science program and gathering together, people who really care about mangroves, we had a lot of people really concerned when the Cairns Regional Council announced it was going to close the Jack Barnes Boardwalk. Now, for anyone who grew up in Cairns, your high school field trips about mangroves went to the Jack Barnes Boardwalk. I went to university here. We went to the Jack Barnes Boardwalk to go and look at the mangroves, because looking at mangroves is dangerous. There's like mud and pokey things and crocodiles, and like you don't want to be waist deep in the mud. And this boardwalk goes into some of the most incredible mangrove forests you'll ever see. If you haven't been there, I suggest you go. The council decided that it was going to remove the boardwalk because it couldn't upkeep the boardwalk. We said that probably wasn't good enough, and that was a really important public asset. After a lot of work, we was very fortunate that amazing CEO at Cairns Airport came on during this time, who's a Maori man and really cares about this stuff. And he And CAFNEC and council got together to have a conversation, and council agreed to give the $480,000 that it was going to spend destroying the boardwalk to the airport. The airport then employed the Dawawuru Rangers, who you can see in the picture there. They started a whole new team, maintenance team, which meant we had 5 new jobs for First Nations people in our region who rebuilt the boardwalk with the original engineer. And earlier this year it opened, and we're really, really proud. Some of those small campaigns can be meaningless in the national picture, but for our region, that is a big win. That's really important. So that will be there now forever. And that maintenance team has now been hired in an ongoing capacity by the airport. So those jobs have continued. So it's really cool. We like to give the council a hard time every now and again as well. Recently, they sent a letter campaign out to all of the residents saying we're going to run out of water by 2026, and everyone got really, really scared and started emailing us saying, what the hell's going on? Are we really in a water crisis? Do we need to build dams? What's going to happen? And so we started asking the questions. It's been almost a year now since that started, and what we've found is that there is concerns with our water security. The Mulgrave proposal isn't necessarily the only option on the table when it comes to how we deal with water security issues. The scorecard that you're seeing on the right is what the council has done on its demand management strategy since 2015. You can see there's one green dot there. There's a lot of red and a lot of orange. And when we first met with council, we were told that they had exhausted all demand management strategies and there wasn't any more to be done in that area. We're very happy to see that that tune is changing, and we commissioned a comparative analysis comparing the water use with Mackay and South East Queensland and how SEQ responded to the drought. We held a forum here on it last week, and if you go to our website, if you scan that QR code, you can see a recording that included councillors, it included their water security officers, as well as First Nations people whose land the proposal for the Mulgrave catchment is on, and a presentation about our comparative analysis. But basically what we've found is that we use a lot of water compared to other regions. As you can see there, we're 70% more than SEQ residents. And also in that report, we found that our water usage basically is flatlining. It doesn't change dependent on the wet season or the dry season, which is very unusual. And so there's some real opportunities for education in there, but also financial incentives. We're one of the only regional councils in Queensland who doesn't have tiered water rates. So if you're using less water, your water rates drop. So there's a lot that we can be doing. So if you scan that QR code, you can watch that forum, or it's on our website as well. We love our sky puppies, as I like to call them. Spectacled flying foxes are the core of the wet tropics rainforest. They're the only long distance seed disperser and a key pollinator for the wet tropics, and that has been set in precedent in law after a very important case a while ago now. We still have laws that allow for a critically endangered and keystone species for the wet tropics World Heritage Area to be killed. So you can still get take permits to kill these animals. You can still disperse them from their roosts, even if it is a nationally significant roost hosting more than 20% of the remaining population. Currently we've been, campaigning to try and protect their roost sites and to recover that species. We also released, we're the only state or territory in Australia that allows for roosts to be dispersed without any assessment under the Nature Conservation Act. There isn't like a priority for in situ management. The really good councils down in Brisbane and the Sunshine Coast are already doing that. And so the government says, oh, well, we don't need to because some people are doing it. And it's like, the protection of our core threatened species should be legislated. It shouldn't be an opt-in process. So we're continuing to campaign for that. We've also formed a recovery team with some incredible scientists and activists and different government members. And we're really proud recently to save the T5 tree at the library, which was proposed to be removed by the council. We didn't mention flying foxes in our case for that because it's too controversial. But what we did say, the tree was supposedly a problem because it might drop the limb on people and kill them. And so the council said they had to remove it because you couldn't sit under it. And I was like, well, you can't sit under it if it's not there either. So we were successful in working with council in quite a productive way to encourage them to just prevent people from sitting underneath the tree and to do some rehabilitation work to improve its health. And that has been successful, and a management plan for that tree in perpetuity will be released soon. And that is the last remaining creche tree in a nationally significant roost for flying foxes. So if we ever stop them dispersing them, all the little babies will come back. It was a federal election this year. One of the really important roles that we play is holding forums in which the community can raise environmental issues before elections to let decision makers know what's on our agenda. This year we were really proud to collaborate with the Australian Marine Conservation Society, Doctors for the Environment, the Torres Strait 8, who are Torres Strait 8 campaigners who recently won their case in the United Nations Court, showing their case was that the Australian government had failed to protect their cultural rights by inaction on climate change. If you haven't seen it, it's amazing and incredible. Also with Get Up and the Australian Youth Climate Coalition, we called it the Climate, Culture and Health Forum. We talked about all of those issues together, and it was a really powerful time. And unfortunately, our sitting member decided not to attend, so didn't get to hear any of our important issues. But, you know, maybe one day he'll hear the environmental voice. We also run a really important community organising and leadership program. We know that, and India's sitting in the room with us today, our work as an organisation has been going on for 41 years now, and it's never been the staff who make it happen. It's been the incredible people who give up their volunteer hours to lead important work. Leadership's really complicated and it's hard, and the people who make a difference don't usually sign up because they want to be leaders. They just want bad stuff to stop happening, and then unfortunately have to become leaders to do that. What we're doing in our community organising and leadership program is really helping people to understand their leadership, to conceptualise their leadership, to be proud of it, and to have tools to do it better, and to connect with other people who are reluctant leaders, as you might call. And I say that because usually anyone who's like, I'm going to be a leader, is like problematic and hard to work with. And anyone who's like, I'm not a leader, I just like to get things done and help other people get involved and like generally make the community a better place, they're usually the leaders. We represent on a bunch of different community groups. So we have an important role of like being the voice to government bodies. We run community events. So we have a monthly green drinks the last Thursday of every night. We have an interesting speaker, similar to a TESS vibe, but not as research focused. And we also are a big part of Eco Fiesta. For a very long time before council took on Eco Fiesta, CAFNEC ran Enviro Fiesta, and we're really excited that a well-funded body with like a lot more people is looking after that now, but they always make sure we're a core part of that event. And last year, Costa gave us the Golden Gnome Award, which was nice. I think it's always important to talk about how we're funded. I put a QR code there so you can all scan it and donate. So great job. But we are a charity and a non-government organisation. You can see that 26% of our funding currently comes from government, and we have another 37% coming from non-government grants. And then charitable donations and membership makes up more than a quarter of our funding. And that's just everyday people who are giving us money to do what we do. Our memberships and our EcoStars and our donations are the core of what we do, and they allow us to be free. One of the hardest things about being an advocacy organisation is who's giving you money and what opinions do they think they get to have in the background. We're really passionate about having funding sources that don't prevent us from saying what needs to be said. I always say an advocate's job is to make the unpopular idea popular, but that doesn't always come with friends. And I want to mention our legacy legends there. We have a program that allows people to give gifts in their wills to us. We have more than 20 people who have committed to doing that now. It's a really hard thing to talk about, but it's so incredibly special. And that photo there is a group of our legacy legends who meet every year to have a lunch, talk about why CAFNEC's important to them and why they've left a gift in their will to us so that when they leave this world, they're still here making a difference on the ground. And also a lot of them have been members with CAFNEC from the very beginning. I could talk about CAFNEC for a really long time. It's a very big organisation doing a lot of work, but that's probably the core of what we're up to now. And yeah, happy to answer any questions that anyone might have.